Somebody else decides how your week goes. Your manager decides whether the project survives. Your landlord decides whether you are moving. A platform decides whether anybody sees your work at all. You can be careful and decent and good at your job and still spend most of your life waiting to find out what other people have chosen for you. There was a man who started much further down that hole than you will ever be. He did not have a manager, he had an owner. He was born property. His leg did not work, and the name history has for him is not really a name at all. Epictetus is a Greek word. It means acquired. It is what you call a thing that has been bought. In the next few minutes, I'm going to take you through his life, and then give you 4 things he worked out that will change how your Tuesday feels. He never wrote a single word of it down. One student did, and 50 years later that notebook was in the hands of the most powerful man on earth, who was using it to keep himself standing up. We will get there. Chapter 1. A name that means acquired. He was born around the year 50 in Hierapolis, a city in what is now Turkey. We do not know his parents. We do not know what he was called as a child because a slave's name was whatever the household decided to call him. At some point, he was brought to Rome, into the house of a man called Epictetus. And Epictetus is worth a sentence, because he had been a slave himself. Freed, worked his way up, and made secretary to the emperor. The emperor was Nero. So, picture the arrangement. An owned boy, in the household of a former slave who now handled the private correspondence of the most dangerous man in the empire. Epictetus grew up close enough to absolute power to watch exactly what it did to the people who had it. And then there is his leg. He was lame. He walked with difficulty his whole adult life, and the ancient accounts do not agree about why. One version, and it is the one everybody repeats, is that his master did it. That Epictetus was twisting his leg for entertainment, and Epictetus said calmly, "You are going to break it." And it broke. And he said, "I told you that you would." That comes to us second-hand, from a writer hostile to him. The other version is duller and probably likelier. A commentator who wrote about him later says it was a disease in his joints from childhood. I am not going to pick the dramatic one just because it makes better television. What is not settled, I would rather tell you, is not settled. Chapter 2. The Slave Who Was Sent to School. Here is the strange part. Epictetus let him study. We do not know why. An educated slave was worth more, so it may simply have been an investment. Whatever the reason, Epictetus was sent to hear a Stoic teacher called Musonius Rufus. And Musonius was not a soft man to be sent to. Nero had already exiled him to a bare island in the Aegean. He was the kind of teacher who told you the truth about yourself in front of other people. Epictetus said afterwards that Musonius spoke in a way that made every man in the room feel personally accused. He meant it as praise. Chapter 3. Free and thrown out anyway. Nero killed himself in the year 68, and the household around him came apart. Somewhere in the years after that, Epictetus was freed. This is where you expect the story to turn upward. It does not. He set up as a teacher in Rome, taught there for about 20 years, and then the Emperor Domitian decided philosophers were a political problem and ordered every one of them out of Italy. Think about what that actually meant. He had been born property and clawed his way to a room of his own in the center of the world, and a man he had never met signed something and took it. He was in his 40s. It was the second time his whole life had been decided by somebody else's paperwork. So he crossed the sea to Nicopolis, a town on the west coast of Greece, and started again somewhere nobody important lived. And then something happens that nobody planned. People started sailing to him. His school became one of the most respected in the Roman world. Senators made the crossing. Men who would go on to advise emperors sat in that room. He owned almost nothing the entire time. The only thing in his house worth stealing was an iron lamp, and somebody stole it, and he replaced it with a clay one. Among the people who made that journey was a young Roman called Arrian. Arrian took notes, unglamorous, obsessive notes, in the voice of the man speaking, including the arguments and the sarcasm. Epictetus never wrote a book. Those notebooks are the only reason we have any of this. 4 of the 8 volumes survive. Here are the 4 things worth taking out of them. Rule 1. Sort everything into 2 piles and be honest about the sorting. Some things are up to you. Your judgment, your effort, your response, what you will and will not do. Some things are not. Your reputation, your body, your job, other people's opinions, the outcome of anything involving anybody else. Most people misuse this within a day. They use it to opt out. Not my problem, not in my control, and back to bed. That is not what he taught. He was not describing a smaller life. He was describing where your effort actually buys something. Everything in the second pile still matters enormously. You just stop paying rent on it. Rule 2. It is not the thing. It is your verdict on the thing. He taught that people are not shaken by what happens to them, but by the view they take of what happens. 2 people are made redundant on the same morning. One is humiliated and one is relieved. Same event, 2 verdicts. He is not saying the event is fine, some events are terrible. He is saying there is a step between the event and your suffering, that the step belongs to you, and that most people go a whole lifetime without noticing it is there. Someone is short with you in a message. Before you decide anything, you have already added a story. The story is not in the message, you wrote it. Rule 3. You did not choose the part, you choose how it gets played. He used the theater for this. Your job is to play the character you were handed, and play it well. Short or long, rich or poor, powerful or nobody. The casting belongs to somebody else, the performance belongs to you. From almost anyone else, that is an insult. A comfortable man telling a poor one to accept his lot. It is not that, because of who is saying it. This is a man born, owned, lame, and exiled, telling you the casting is not the performance. What he is attacking is the most common way people waste a life, which is arguing with the facts of the situation instead of working inside them. Rule 4. Freedom is not something anybody grants you. This is the one his whole life was the evidence for. He had been legally a slave and legally free, and he had seen both from the inside. His conclusion was that the legal status told you almost nothing. He had watched men in that court who could not be sold and still could not sleep, because they were owned by their fear of what one man thought of them. He said, the free person is the one who lives as they actually wish, and that almost nobody does, because almost everybody has handed the controls to something. So the question is not whether you are free, it is what currently owns you. Now, the notebook. Arrian's notes traveled. They were copied and read and passed around the empire. Roughly 50 years after Epictetus died, a man sat in a military tent on the northern frontier, in the middle of a war and a plague, writing to himself at night to stay steady. He was the emperor of Rome. His name was Marcus Aurelius, and in the opening pages of that private notebook, he stops to thank the friend who put the discourses of Epictetus into his hands. The most powerful man in the world was using the teaching of a crippled former slave to hold himself together. One last thing about the end. Epictetus, old, owning almost nothing, took in a child who had been abandoned and would otherwise have been left to die, and raised him. The man whose name means acquired spent the end of his life on the only kind of acquiring he ever approved of.